in the focus.
It's been retained, but we are asking now for more.
We also ask at the top leadership that we ensure that we have gender balance amongst the three positions of president, deputy, and prime minister.
Never again will women fear every election because they will be displaced. Never again will women fear because they will be raped and our girls be defiled because of elections.
I know you have seen us as women, we have been divided. We want to promise you today. Zile vyama tulikuwa navyo tofauti, sijui embrace inua mama tunaziua leo. Ili tuseme we are moving together.
Sijui tangatanga, sijui kieleweke, sijui warembo na huyu na warembo na yule. Tuachane. Sasa ni warembo wa Kenya.
All right, so those are the leaders. You had challenges with Charity Ngilu from Kitui County, but she was saying that tunasema asante kwa sababu what you have fought for has been retained, but we ask for more. So at the end of the day, the take home, if you listen to the leaders, the take home is about the structure of the executive. And I know you had views that you wanted to end as far as the Prime Minister's position is concerned. Let's quickly take a look at that. And also respond to the question, did it capture the moment of the nation? Have we forgotten so fast already now that you're fighting about the implementation matrix?
I think the BBI report, in as far as it didn't recommend for positions, there was fear that it would come up with more positions, deputy, prime minister, two more deputy presidents. In as far as it did not recommend more position, I think it met the expectations of the people in that regard. But in creating the prime minister post, first of all, you recall the BBI report recommended that cabinet secretaries now be renamed as cabinet ministers. And I think that is the basis on which now the prime minister comes in as just a minister, but a prime minister appointed by the president. So you look at a minister being appointed by the president from majority party. So what will happen in essence is that the president, the deputy president, and the prime minister will come most likely from the same party. And looks like we may not need to amend the constitution to bring in the prime minister. It's just a prime minister. That is my look at it. Yeah, it doesn't change dramatically the structure of governance. As but
the position of a prime minister is not existent in the constitution.
But I've given the background. I'm saying this is a prime minister. We have changed the naming of ministers to cabinet ministers, and therefore the president appoints just one prime minister from that cabinet list. And so, which basically what it does is that the president delegates some of his duties to this prime minister. These are duties which the president ordinarily does, but is now delegating these duties to the prime minister.
So in your view, that can be done by parliament?
I think it can be, because it doesn't change so much the structure of governance as we see it under the proposed Article 255.
Right.
So to me, it looks like we've just elevated one minister to be prime. That's it.
All right, Senator Khalwale, your views in as far as those proposals are concerned, and do you feel that leaders captured the essence of what is in the report?
Listening to many leaders out there, including my brother, the senator of Kajiado.
Narok.
Narok.
Senator of Narok, how can I mistake you? The senator for Narok. They are deliberately misleading the public using English words. For example, when my brother says that the proposal by BBI has brought an imperial presidency, he is misleading Kenyans.
I have to respond to that.
Because he is falling short of defining what an imperial presidency is.
I shall define it.
An imperial presidency, dear Kenyans, means a presidency that is not controllable, and two, a presidency that exceeds its constitutional limits, period. Now, in the respect of the BBI proposal, no power has been added to the president that would make him uncontrollable. The president of Kenya remains impeachable. That is control. Number two, the budget of the president of Kenya do not pass without approval of Parliament. That is control. And then as far as the issue of constitutional functioning in excess of the Constitution, if it were imperial, the President of Kenya is subject to the Constitution. In fact, to the extent that some of the function of the President had been pulled and taken to constitutional commissions. Other functions have been taken to Parliament. This is so that the President does not exceed that. What has happened in this proposal is something which, and I'm glad that my brother Moses is here, which in our Okoa Kenya initiative, we were also mooting. In fact, when we went to the election, Mudavadi and Wetangula were waiting for Raila to become president so that he tweaks the presidency a little bit for them to become either prime minister, or they were calling it at that time chief minister. That does not require a referendum. When my brother Moses here says that constitutional amendments must go to a referendum, you should go ahead and tell us in what it is in the recommendations of BBI that must go to a referendum. What is it? Because in the BBI recommendations, the issues that have been mentioned, when you read each one of them, you don't see a single one that would require that you take the country to a referendum. They have mentioned
including the proposition that you raise the allocation to the counties to between 35 and 50%.
Exactly.
That would not require a referendum.
It does not require a referendum. I remember arguing on this TV station. My brother Ole Kina was trying to say that the functions of Parliament have changed, and therefore we must go to the people. It is true. If you are changing the functions of Parliament, you must go to the people. But what it is that has changed in Parliament, he was referring to the issue of the introduction of a new commission of health workers. You only go to the people in terms of the commissions if you are altering the independence of one of the commissions under this constitution. Now, introducing a commission does not mean you are changing the independence of the Judiciary Service Commission, the Teachers Service Commission, and other commissions that are there. So it doesn't go to the people. As far as the presidency is concerned, when you bring in a prime minister, you are speaking to that, to the function of the president, right? But you only go to the people if you are changing the term of office of the president.
Can I just respond? Let me just come back to you. No, I don't want to forget. Let me rebut on this.
I'll give you an opportunity, Senator Ole Kina, because I'm taking a look at dictionary.com, and they're saying that imperial presidency is a U.S. presidency that is characterized by greater power than the Constitution allows. I'll give you a chance to respond.
Let me respond to that, because that came out from, you know, I've studied American politics, and I can tell you where that theory came from. It came from President Gerald Ford, when he argued that the president is, rather than being too powerful, it means that he doesn't have enough powers to be effective. Let me take you back into the history of this country. Just this year alone, when we had the issue of the division of revenue, the president went out there and said he does not have enough money to give to counties. We argued that that money does not belong to that president. That money belongs to the people of Kenya, and Parliament is the one that divides revenue between the two forms of government. The problem I have with my brother, interpretation of imperial presidency, and him arguing that we are misleading Kenyans, is that he's preaching water and drinking wine. When the president come out and say, I don't have enough money, who say that money belongs to the president? Now, when you take the powers and you give all that power to the president to be able to
he's the chief executive of the country,
listen,
he would know how much is available.
To be able, how would he know? We are the ones. We in Parliament. No, he doesn't. Don't. Let me tell you. Don't make this thing so trivial. This is an issue where the law is very clear. My brother has spoken about constitutional bodies. We had the Commission of Revenue Allocation, which gave proposals on what should be given. That was disregarded because of that powerful statement. And when I sat in the mediation committee, and when I sat there, the majority leader, who is now proposed by this BBI to be the prime minister, stated categorically that we do not have money. You know, the government does not have money. You know, so he was speaking for the president. So what I'm saying, for me to demystify this, for my brother to understand here, and for other Kenyans who may not understand what I'm saying, for them to be able to understand, is that in this democracy now, we do not have to give so much powers to an individual.
All right.
You know, we have come of age as Kenyans, people who have accepted democracy. What we lack in this country is discipline.
Okay, all right. Senator Kajwang, so he says that there are no issues that he feels would require intervention via a referendum. He should go to Parliament. Do you feel there are certain things that are recommended for change that would require us to go through a people's vote?
You see, if we as leaders who are quite distinguished in our backgrounds and career cannot agree, then you would worry about the cane farmer or the fisherman and the cattle herder back in our respective counties. I think let's be honest. When we did Okoa Kenya, and Bonnie, we were with you. Commissioner, you are at IEBC. You are the ones who verified, who dealt with our signatures. We took our mandate from the first article of the Constitution. We, the people. The power that Parliament has to legislate is donated by the people. The people can exercise it directly, or it can be exercised in a delegated manner through Parliament. It does not mean that Parliament, or it does not mean that a referendum only applies to the Article 255, kind of provision scenarios. In Okoa, Kenya, we had provisions that did not require a referendum. For example, in Okoa, Kenya, we are proposing an increase in allocation to counties from the 15% to, I think, 40%. So it is not true that a referendum will only apply when it comes to changing the functions of Parliament, the term of the President, and those scenarios described in Article 255.
Those are just areas where it's mandatory.
Yes, where it's mandatory. And assuming that a draft bill was submitted to county assemblies that did not affect any of those sections, the power of Parliament, roles of Parliament, the tenure of the presidency, then it would go through the county assemblies, come to Parliament, and the President shall assent. It will not have to be taken to a referendum. I think the argument that is being made is that there needs to be a bottom-up approach to this process, rather than just rushing to Parliament. Now, the other aspect of a Prime Minister, Uganda has a Prime Minister. I think right now it's Ruakana Rugunda, someone who has been a long-serving member of the executive. Tanzania has a Prime Minister. In these two countries, the presidents are elected directly. A parliamentary system is going to be troublesome in Kenya with the current delimitation of constituency boundaries. And Commissioner he was involved in this, so he knows. There is a feeling that the Legale Commission did certain gerrymandering such that certain regions in this country ended up with more seats in Parliament than other regions. And so, if you're going to use the current delimited units as constituencies, and make that to be the electoral college for the person with the executive authority in this republic, it is going to be a problem. Unless Kenyans...
you'd rather he's appointed by the president?
Unless Kenyans are going to agree that we go back to a delimitation of constituency boundaries on the basis of certain parameters that are agreed on, unless Kenyans are going to say that we go for both parliamentary plus proportional representation, so that all regions and all communities feel that their numbers count. Kenyans, and the final point, and I think the first proper election for a president in this country was in 1992. The persons who were born in 1992 are now 27 years old. Those who voted in 1992 are now 40-something years old. I think we have put it in the psyche of Kenyans that the president determines bread and butter issues, and so we should be able to elect that president directly. I would prefer, under the current circumstances, with the electoral units that we have, that a powerful parliamentary system where the executive comes from there will be more divisive than it would be uniting.
All right, let's take a listen to...
I can't believe this.
Just before you go,
know why I'm liking
allow
this?
me to take this. The Deputy President spoke about the implementation matrix and alongside Aden Duale, the leader of majority of the National Assembly. Let's listen in.
Hii ripoti ya BBI, sehemu kubwa, karibu 90% itatekelezwa na idara za serikali na wizara za serikali, ingine itatekelezwa na commissions ambazo ziko za katiba, ingine itatekelezwa na bunge. Kubadilisha sheria, kurekebisha sheria itafanyika na bunge, na hiyo ni asilimia karibu 95-99 ya hiyo report inaweza kutekelezwa bila ya matatizo yoyote. Na kama kuna sehemu kwa hii report na mimi kama naibu ya rais sijaona mahali inahitaji referendum ama kura ya maoni, basi mtueleze which part of this report inahitaji kupelekwa referendum. Mbona sisi hatujaona? Si mtueleze.
Kama hamtaki BBI, wacha BBI ipotee. Kama unataka referendum, usitupigie kelele sisi. Kwenda chukua 1 million signatures, utuletee bill. Kama tunakubaliana na wewe, tupatane kiwanjani. Lakini kelele wachana nayo. BBI si hoja, referendum si hoja.
So that's the Deputy President and the leader of majority, and obviously they're still not convinced on how to implement it. So how do we resolve this, Senator?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend my brother Moses here. Listening to him, it emphasizes my belief that inside our parliament, we have people there who can fix these problems. The issue he has raised about parliamentary system is so real. The gerrymandering we have in our constituencies at the moment is such that you have certain constituencies, let me limit myself to my western region, like Budalangi, which is there, for example, at the expense of Malaba constituency and Kandui constituency. If you were to lift the population of Budalangi, for example, and sit it into Kandui, you would get 3 constituencies. In Malaba, you would get 4 constituencies. So until you have fixed that, you cannot go the parliamentary route. Secondly, we must ask ourselves, why did the founding fathers of the nation move the country away in 1963 from parliamentary, from parliamentary to presidential? It is because we wanted full 100% independence. At that time, when Mzee Kenyatta was Prime Minister, we were reporting to the Queen of England, just like Canada and Australia. So they said we want our country to be fully independent, and we moved presidential. And they were informed by the fact that as we moved to presidential, in Kenya, we don't have a king or an emperor to which then the parliamentary system would report. I hope the Orange Democratic Movement will not discipline you, my brother, for being yourself.
We allow alternative views.
Yes, and being sober. This is the route to go. Coming to the comments by the Deputy President. Actually, what the Deputy President was doing, he was just reading to the country the recommendation of BBI. BBI, upon conclusion, right at the beginning, when they're introducing the document, I hope you have the report, they speak to the way forward. They say this is merely recommendations and nothing else. And these recommendations will then be subject to further discussions by institutions and so on for purposes of agreeing on implementation. So I would urge the people who are insisting that we should go to the people, they should itemize the issues in those recommendations that require a referendum. Until you tell us what it is that you want to go for a referendum, then you are just...
So Senator, why is it that you are saying until you tell us? Why can't all of you sit together and look at the report and decide this is the way to go? This is what we require to go to the people. This is what we require to go to the people, to Parliament.
Those of us who sit in the hustler's corner of the hustler nation, we have said that we have read the BBI report and we have realized that the issues raised are not controversial.
Okay.
And therefore they should be given to state departments, to parastatals, to parliament, and line ministries for purposes of implementation. For example, when you say this very hot issue of the changes in the executive, that you change the name of the leader of the minority, from leader of the minority to leader of opposition. Must you do a referendum for that?
No.
You shouldn't. When you change the name of the leader of the majority, now to prime minister, who now doubles up as a minister.
But obviously, Senator, you know that currently there's no bill that is to be taken to Parliament. It will have to take a lot of views, like it was said at the Bomas of Kenya. So don't you think there might be more things that will come beyond what you're seeing in the report?
There is no lacuna. If this presidential task force report will be taken to Parliament, and then it is adopted by Parliament, that is the route reports take. They go to Parliament, they are adopted in the same manner that we adopted the TJRC report, we adopted the Ndunguland report, we adopted many other reports. Once this report is adopted, then the respective people who will be in charge of implementation will start moving. Now, where it requires a bill, the same executive will take that bill and give to the leader of the majority in the House, who will present the bill, and the bill will be debated. It can be amended, it can be improved, things can be deleted, and so on.
All right, let's listen to some more leaders who are speaking of the weekend, different parts of the country, especially the Western region. Let's listen to what they had to say about this conversation.
Prime Minister, it is important that we must go through a referendum for us to come back to the parliamentary system.
Position kama ya Prime Minister must be made more powerful and constitutional. Na sisi tunasema tuwezi kuwa na Prime Minister mwenye anachukuliwa na President, anaweza amuka asubuhi alafu amfute kazi.
We must distribute power. We must make sure there is a true share of power, not power concentrated in one office.
Power lies in the hands of the people, not a few elected officials. This is very important. Let the people decide.
BBI is not a creation of parliament. Nimeona wabunge wengine wanasema leta haraka tupige kura. It has to come to parliament through a parliamentary process, either as a motion or a bill.
Ile natakana kwenda kwa referendum, kama kuna ile referendum wache iangaliwe so that we give people a good product.
Kama kuna vipengele ambavyo vinahitaji referendum iletwe pamoja na kura ya 2022.
Right, so many suggestions, including carrying out the referendum alongside the general election of 2022. What are Kenyans saying? Let's take a look at their views on Twitter. Citizen TV Kenya, Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Debrek. Isaac Muthusi, you say, why does the country need a prime minister who is little more than an errand boy for the president? Yes. Appointed by the president, can be fired by the president, and does only what the president tasks him to do.
Yeah, delegated.
Well, Engineer Lazaro, you say 2010 Constitution stated very clear, no way you can amend any section of the Constitution without involving the Wananchi. I think DP handlers are terribly wrong to blame civil servants like Matiang'i and Kibicho. This thing is purely politics, unless you're talking about public participation. Omwando Vikri, we need an executive prime minister and not what is proposed in the BBI report. While some of the proposals can be mitigated through parliament, others will require a referendum. What else do you say? Kalu Lepario, I agree with some of the speakers that the BBI report didn't address various issues that ailed this country. Instead, it was meant to calm political temperatures. Let's hope consultative process will change it further to suit Mwananchi interest. You see that, consultative process to suit Mwananchi interest. Then this is on SMS line 22422. You said, this is anonymous, you don't say who you are. BBI got it wrong on IEBC. Election officials need to be experienced and skillful enough. Employing returning officers on 3-year contracts is opening room for more chaos. Of course, there's so many suggestions on the IEBC. You also don't leave your name. We don't trust those MPs. We have seen them being bribed to pass motions that doesn't favor common Mwananchi. For instance, sugar and maize scandals, let the referendum come back to common Mwananchi. Okay. Roger John from Homa Bay. The BBI report, to a good extent, is a prudent document. It is only sad many leaders have chosen to fault it instead of proposing what valuables we had in the Punguza Mizigo to nourish the BBI. Why does the current crop of politicians argue like they will lead forever? I would be more objective if they, it would be more objective if they will, if they reasoned away from power and party politics. When Jacobs needs pristine and cross-cutting, not party-based. Kizungu kubwa. Tito Wakayole, the BBI to me has even brought more confusion and divisions. Its authors probably wanted to make everyone happy. I agree with the Narok senator that the report deals mostly to remind us what we ought to do. What if the president and the PM comes from the same party, region and community? That's a question. Oh, well, the last one for now. Comment from Eldred. The BBI report, despite lacking radical proposals as expected by the political elite, tried to advance homegrown solutions to our challenges. In fact, one of the joint secretaries clearly stated that they avoided traveling abroad to seek ideas. Kenyans have a document they can use as firm ground to take this country forward. We should not misuse the opportunity by allowing selfish interests overshadow us. So that's what Kenyans are saying on 2242. I want us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be talking about something that happened during that BBI event. Senator Ole Kina sort of tried to talk about it, but he was speaking about what image we saw of the Deputy President and the ensuing conversation around Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i on what he said while in Kirinyaga. So we talk about that after the break.
Ukishika huyu, ule mwingine anakusema ni adui. Ukishika huyu sasa, ule mwingine ni adui. Let us now be mature. Personal ambition is not bad. It's a healthy thing. We all want to be ambitious because we are desirous, we want power. But I pray and I appeal to you today. Don't let those ambitions of yours overshadow our ability to fix those things that will help you achieve your ambitions. Mungu mwenyewe, yeye pekee ndio anajua rais wa 5 wa Jamhuri ya Kenya ni nani. Hakuna mwingine anajua.
All right, so that's the president on the day that he unveiled the BBI report. And we'll be taking a look at some of the images that we saw of the Deputy President, William Ruto, at the event. He looked very different from the images that we have known previously. He would appear, what many are saying, that he appeared isolated. He was pensive. He appeared like he would have wanted to be somewhere else. I don't know whether we feel so. Do you think that the Deputy President was sort of isolated during that event?
To be honest, I think it was a little bit isolation for him because he was not part of the BBI process. So he was, in my view, he was anticipating to see what will come out because this was a process between 2 individuals. It was the president and the prime minister. So all of us were also looking forward to what is going to come out. I don't want to dwell a lot on that issue because I think that is divisive. I think what we've got to look at is the issues that we discussed earlier. In terms of, I wanted to comment on what Speaker Muturi said, which I agree with him. I don't think we should subject this process of BBI to the same process of the TGRC report because we know ultimately what happened to the TGRC report, what happened to the Ndongo report. They are all collecting dust. This is a report which, like the Prime Minister said and the President said, belong to the people. And I'm quite happy with the SMSs that we are getting, the tweets which are coming through. It shows that Kenyans are reading this. And I think now it behooves us, the politicians, to sort of like take a back seat and let the people drive this process. Okay? Because the only way that we can actually go to Parliament if we begin the process in Parliament. I don't know whether you remember, during that launch of the BBI, Governor Kiraito Murungi also alluded to a process being introduced by the governors. I'm sure we have we also have an initiative coming up from Parliament. I think what is important is for us to look at this report. And what I expected from the team, the BBI team, is for them to come up with a matrix and say, we went through the 47 counties. In Narok County, these were the views on the 9 issues. These were the views on the 9 issues. But what the BBI team did, which is where I disagree with them completely, is that they now went and interpreted our views to what they thought we were saying. Give us the views. What did Narok say in terms of issue number 1 to 9? What did Kajiado say in terms of issue number 1 to 9? Then we summarize those reports and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 counties, or rather 24 counties felt like we better have a very powerful prime minister. The issue of corruption, this is how we're going to deal with it. The issue of winner take all, this is how we're going to do with it. And I think now, since they failed in doing that, I think it is now our time as leaders. If we really want to bring this country together and support this process, which a lot of taxpayers' money was spent to be able to come up with this report. Okay. For us to now go back into people and say, gentlemen, ladies, is this what you said? No. Then we bring it together. Let us debate it in Bomas of Kenya. Let Narok County say this is what we think is the best thing to unite us.
All right.
Because the problem which is there, and I said it before, is the issue of discipline in this country.
Discipline.
All these constitutional bodies, okay, are not being given an opportunity to be able to do their work. IBC as an example, okay? If it's allowed to do its work, and supported fully as the Constitution stipulates, then we will not be having these problems.
All right. Senator, you have run away from my question, but let me just contextualize it with this. The conversation that has been happening between Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Interior Cabinet Secretary. He spoke in Kirinyaga, I believe it was on, was it Friday or Saturday, and he didn't have very nice words to say. Let's listen to what the Deputy President has responded, saying that government officials should not wanaleta madharau. Let's just listen to that.
Wafanyikazi wa serikali, kila mtu ambaye umepatiwa kazi na Uhuru Kenyatta na serikali ya Jubilee, wacha kupiga kifua, wacha kiburi, wacha madharau, kwa sababu nyinyi mnafanya kazi na serikali hii ilichaguliwa na hawa wananchi.
Sisi hatupendangi mambo ya upuzi kubebana hivi, kazi lazima ifanywe. Sababu tulipewa kazi tufanye, na mheshimiwa rais wetu ametupea kazi tufanye. Nchi inatawaliwa na inalindwa kama boma inalindwa. Boma ina mtu wa kuongoza mmoja. Kuna mtu hapa akona familia ambayo inaongozwa na wazee wawili? Hapana, familia inaongozwa na mzee mmoja. Sisi tunafanyia Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta kazi, ndio rais wetu.
Hiyo maofisi kubwa kubwa mko nazo, wenye kuwapatia ni hawa wananchi wadogo hawa, watu wa bodaboda, wale mama mboga, wale watu ambao mnawadharau. Those are the people who put you in office. Kwa hivyo hiyo madharau yenu hiyo na kiburi mko naye, hiyo ni yenu. Hamujatumwa na mtu yeyote na hamujatumwa na rais.
We want to tell the president, wale wanaleta uhasama kwa Jubilee ni mawaziri wako ambao wanafanya siasa. Na hii mawaziri hata wanatupigia sisi kelele. Hata mwingine akisimama hapo Nyamira aombe kiti ya kettle dip ya msee ametaa hawezi pewa. Wewe unaambia nini raia?
I just want to remind them that you are mere appointees, and anytime that appointment can disappear, my friend. What's the track record ya Matiang'i in public service is terrible.
We can't allow technocrats who have never been voted by anyone to try to break peace in this country. We will not.
Walikuonesha madharau, endelea kunyenyekea. Endelea kuwa mtulivu. Wacha wakukosea aibu, wacha wakuletee madharau, iko Mwenyezi Mungu mbinguni. Juu ya Mwenyezi Mungu mbinguni iko hawa wananchi na ndio wako na nguvu.
All right, former commissioner,
yes.
You're saying something. I mean, when you look at this, because this is a cabinet secretary and his boss, the deputy president, fighting out in the open, what is this? What have we come to?
It's not good for the ruling party to begin with and for the functions of government. Looks like they are pulling apart, and yet they are serving the same government, the same president. And by the way, what the minister is forgetting is that the presidency comprises of the president and the deputy president. Those are his bosses. So you cannot isolate the president from the deputy president. I think that's where he goes a bit overboard. He needs to realize he's a servant. He's a servant of the people appointed by the president and given those duties. And he must have respect. You know, when you go to a public barasa like that and start chest thumping, because that's what we call chest thumping, that I have a mandate, have been given by the president, and then saying other people are not with us, is isolating the leadership of the country. That is where humility needs to come in. The minister needs to be advised. He's been appointed to serve, and he must serve that with humility and not bring in a wedge between the president and the deputy and other leaders. Look at the fire he's attracting to himself, unnecessarily so, from the politicians who have the mandate to talk the way they want to talk.
But you know, Commissioner, that there has been several attacks going to his office, and especially even during the BBI unveiling at the Bomas of Kenya. And I remember Kipchumba Murkomen, the leader of majority at the Senate, accusing his office and even the PS in that office of being behind the planning of the Bomas of Kenya. So is he just responding after being provoked?
I don't know, but you know, you're taking us to politics. But what me I'm saying is that if you are in that position, and there have been many leaders in that position of interior, a very powerful docket, by the way. It's a docket you need to carry with a little bit of care.
Okay.
Because it's a powerful docket, and power can get into your head very fast. We have seen all of them. So he needs to just balance. Being a servant of the people, is not a politician appointed or elected. And so he has to balance that respect and serving the people.
All right, Senator Khalwale, what's your take in as far as this war of words is concerned?
I think the CS Interior should also find time to count his blessings. He really should. Because just under the recently changed constitution, the old constitution, to reach where Matiang'i was, he would have had to win an election, become a member of parliament, prove his leadership acumen before he gets appointed. You know, Matiang'i should know that he was created by William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta.
How so?
How do you create a human being?
If by creation I mean as a minister, he was created by William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta in this manner. If William Ruto and Uhuru had failed to win the election, Matiang'i would not be a minister today.
But Senator, don't you think that would be intimidating the officer who is holding that office by way of appointment of, through the constitution?
But if he's working for William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, he has every reason to A, respect them, and B, spend a lot of time consulting them on what they would prefer their government to be doing. I mean, it is only a few months ago when the senator for Kericho disclosed to the nation that he once saved Matiang'i when he found Matiang'i in the deputy president's office in respect of the Ruaraka land.
Which the CS denied.
Well, he didn't support it with evidence.
But was there evidence from the senator?
The evidence was from the Senate committee, and I'm glad that the chairman is here. So Matiang'i should know that by choosing to wade into the political arena, the consequences might actually include things that he has not thought about.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Could I
since Senator, quickly.
No, I wouldn't want to talk about issues of Ruaraka, because I see it coming up every other time people are unhappy with Matiang'i, and yet we had an opportunity in Parliament to deal with those issues, and my report was defeated by none other than Murkomen and others who are now shouting during the weekends. But we have seen attacks at President Uhuru through Raila. So they hammer Raila over BBI, but in the real sense, the target is President Uhuru. And BBI came, and now people are looking for another soft target. Now we are seeing attacks directed at President Uhuru, but through proxies like Fred Matiang'i and Karanja Kibisho. When you point one finger at Matiang'i, 4 fingers are pointing directly at Uhuru Kenyatta. So Kenyans are not fools, because as Senator Khalwale said, Matiang'i is a creation of Uhuru. Yeah. He's the one who elevated Matiang'i to that superposition, such that when you're now hitting on Matiang'i, you're definitely hitting at President Uhuru Kenyatta. So let them take off the gloves and take on President Uhuru if they believe that they have the numbers and if they believe that they have the principles and the people behind them. But some, my view has never changed, that our cabinet is dysfunctional. You have a cabinet where the president and the deputy are supposed to sit at the head of it. Within that cabinet, there are people the deputy president has accused of coming up with assassination plots against him. They are still there. You have people who have been, whose names have been mentioned in issues to do with corruption. You have people who are insubordinate to the people through parliament. Some of them don't even appear before parliament. You have people who are clearly incompetent. Look at the kind of messages we usually get in the sports ministries, or the kind of things that we are dealing with in the health sector currently. This cabinet is dysfunctional. And in the president's last State of the Nation address, a lot of people expected that the president was going to do something to rejig the team. Our cabinet is like Arsenal. football club. It needs to be reorganized for it to be able to deliver. In fact, this BBI and the ethos and the shared prosperity and the economic benefits that we expect to get out of it cannot be delivered with this cabinet in its current state.
Wow. Senator, what do you think should be the solution out of this?
I think, in my view, I fault both parties, both the cabinet secretary and the DP. They belong to one political party. If they have beef, let them go deal with it in-house. Let them not come in and, come up with all this theatrical. I think the position that the cabinet secretary holds is a very powerful position. I believe it's the only position which can be construed as political. Which can be construed as political. So with that sensitivity in it, I think also the cabinet secretary has got to really be careful on how he perceives things.
Right.
Because we are talking about inclusivity. We are talking about issues in terms of how do we bring this country together. Now, if we see the people who we expect to be able to guide us, to get out of these problems that every Kenyan is talking about, are fighting, then what hope do Kenyans have? FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, said, in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. So whatever you're seeing, all these politicians from the North Rift talking about, they planned to attack the cabinet. Whatever you saw Matiang'i doing, he planned to do so. So I think if we are really serious about some of the issues that were raised in the BBI report, let us take a back seat. Let us try to come up and ask ourselves, what can we do to be able to, sort of like go back to our own cultural ethos, what we're talking about. Africa, and Kenya particularly, is known to be a very good country. We only unite when we win marathons. We don't unite when we have different views. My brother, Senator Kajwang, talked about this. Let me just respond on that really quickly. On the issues of,
10 seconds.
When he compared Kenya with Tanzania and Uganda, Kenya is different. We are more democratic in this country. We are trained to be more democratic, free-spirited. We can talk and be happy, and no one is going to go after you.
Right.
But when you go to Tanzania and Uganda, it is not the same way. So we cannot say we have to adopt their system in terms of a parliamentary system or presidential system or a hybrid in bringing in a prime minister. I think in Kenya, we are above that. We have to, if we have issues with our boundaries, the act is very clear. The IEBC chair or the IEBC has to review them periodically. And I think this is beginning next year. So let us deal with that. If it is an issue of gerrymandering, let us be honest with each other. Let us instill discipline in the constitutional bodies that we have so that we can then chart the way forward. If it's a pure parliamentary system, let's go by it.
That route. All right. Allow me to just one question. You're the only one who will respond because you've been a commissioner at the IEBC. And there's that proposal that political parties are the ones that are going to pay commissioners and that there has to be a new commission in the 2022 election. Do you think it's a fair view so that we can have the political parties comfortable with who is at the commission?
On terms of the proposed BBI appointment of commissioners by political parties, I think they have taken us back to the days of the IPPG. It was in 1997.
That's right.
They have taken us back. We've been there before. And we found that it can't work. Remember in 2007, when President Kibaki brought in a lot of commissioners, it resulted in a very chaotic election which led us to almost to war. And it is that, because of that election, it informed the formation of the Kriegler Commission, which then came with proposals on how commissioners are supposed to be appointed. And that Kriegler Commission is a very good document which gave us the roadmap for our elections. It proposes neutral commissioners, commissioners who are appointed professionally and who come in competitively and are perceived to be neutral. Passive, I'm using the word passive, because nobody ever becomes neutral sometimes. But perception is very important.
Right.
But now, if we go back to what BBI is saying, and appoint commissioners by political parties. By the way, we have how many political parties now? 60-something political parties. So 63 political parties. So how many political parties are going to appoint the commissioners? The rest will feel left out, including the independent.
So you prefer the current framework?
The current framework is the best.
But it's still
because
suspicious.
I will give you an example. In Zanzibar, when the election was done, a few commissioners who are appointed by political parties disowned it. And the others also supported it. There was a fallout. In Mozambique, what happened? again, the commissioners who are appointed by political parties refuse to recognize the election. And so there will be chaos in IBC where commissioners are directly known to be, this is from ODM, this one is from Jubilee, they will take sides. Nothing ever moves.
Okay.
So my proposal is that let us kindly maintain the present as recommended by Krigler. And talking about that, they have come with a very radical proposal to say anybody can be chair of IBC. I think that is very wrong.
Okay.
It is very wrong. If there is a reason why a lawyer is always the head of the IBC, and in this case, we can always bring in a retired Chief Justice to head the thing. We can always bring in a respectable judge from the Supreme Court to conduct elections and even go back to where they were from.
Okay.
So I don't agree with that proposal, bring an executive from nowhere. There is a reason why a trained lawyer must be the head of IBC.
Of course, there are so many other proposals that even the Secretary should not work.
But if you allow me again on the exit.
3 years each. Unfortunately, we can't because we are practically out of time. Let's take a look at some of the feedback that you've been sending to us on Twitter. Isaac Muthusi, as long as interior CS and PS continue playing politics instead of their work, we will continue having such devastating news. Matiang'i and Kibicho should quit politics and concentrate on their work. That's Isaac Muthusi. Tom Wango, why is the BBI silent on making the Senate the upper house? We can't talk of strengthening devolution if Senate is left to remain the lower house. Outright deception. Is it the lower house now? No, I'm not sure about that. Wainaina, you say we care little about who and how the BBI is implemented. Can the leaders for once think about the people and lay down their pride and prejudice and work to... Hey, okay, the proposals. Thank you so much for your time. Senator Ledama Ole Kina, I know there's something you wanted to add, but unfortunately, that's our time. Thomas Letangule, former commissioner of the IEBC, former Senator Kakamega, Boni Khalwale, Senator Moses Kajong from Homa Bay. Thank you so much for making time for us. Up next is Sporty Monday with Willis Raburu. We'll be looking at some of the matches that happened over the weekend, so stay tuned. Text us your views on 22422 or Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gituku, at Willis Raburu. The hashtag to use is Debrek. We'll sample some of them during the show. Back